It is pretty incredible what's happening.
Yeah.
Because you can see it in media, you can see it in social space, you can see it in corporate America. All these things are sort of combined. Like everybody's sort of figured out, like, oh, we've been on the wrong side of things for quite some time.
Yeah. It definitely feels like there's been some kind of a vibe shift. I think Trump winning the election absolutely solidified it, and you're seeing a lot of people are finally catching on to that. There was this line, I think it was when he was on Joe Rogan, Mark Andreessen had a line where he was like, the day of the attempted assassination of Trump, there was like a split in the timeline. And it was like there were two diverging paths. One, which is like the worst case scenario if something had happened to President Trump, like it would have been the worst possible outcome. But we are now on the good timeline. Like Trump survived, Trump won. You're seeing like Walmart's against DEI now, right? You're seeing, as we'll cover in the news, Daniel Penny. Like we are in the good timeline, and the good timeline for the left is a very bad thing.
Yeah, right.
I don't have to tell you Americans are ready for what's next. Moving beyond the hardships of inflation and economic anxiety towards building a future, a better future for our families. Ensuring greater access to more affordable energy that powers daily lives, reliable energy that fuels innovation and economic growth, and the abundant energy that keeps our nation safer and more secure. It's all within our grasp. We'll do this together, building a brighter future for us, powered by America's oil and natural gas resources. You can learn more about all of this at api.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to a big program here in the Ruthless Variety program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, left or right across your radio dial, as always. Fellas, it is a hell of a week. We're getting close to the holidays here.
Yeah.
The most wonderful time
Of the year.
There we go. I wanted the magical involved. Thank you, Michael. Lots going on.
Yeah.
It turns out the left is in shambles.
Yeah. I mean, the news cycle is like a mile a minute right now. It's flying. But basically, the news cycle continues to be the left is melting down, and we keep winning. Like, I'm still not tired of all the winning.
It is pretty incredible what's happening.
Yeah.
Because you can see it in media, you can see it in social space, you can see it in corporate America. All these things are sort of combined. Like everybody's sort of figured out, like, oh, we've been on the wrong side of things for quite some time.
Yeah. It definitely feels like there's been some kind of a vibe shift. I think Trump winning the election absolutely solidified it, and you're seeing a lot of people are finally catching on to that. There was this line, I think it was when he was on Joe Rogan, Mark Andreessen had a line where he was like, the day of the attempted assassination of Trump, there was like a split in the timeline. And it was like there were two diverging paths. One, which is like the worst case scenario if something had happened to President Trump, like it would have been the worst possible outcome. But we are now on the good timeline. Like Trump survived, Trump won. You're seeing like Walmart's against DEI now, right? You're seeing, as we'll cover in the news, Daniel Penny. Like we are in the good timeline, and the good timeline for the left is a very bad thing.
Yeah, right. It involves Taylor Lorenz.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of things that we're going to get into in this show. But, like, look, I think we ought to start with the Daniel Penny thing.
Yes.
So just for those of you who hadn't followed this, there was a big kerfuffle along, what was it, like midsummer, early summer, maybe even spring. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember exactly what the timeline was, but Daniel Penny was someone who was riding a subway who encountered an absolutely unhinged individual who was attacking people, basically. And this was a guy who, much like the people that we all grew up with, when you see something and danger to others around a public place, you do something about it.
There was an unhinged guy on the subway who said, it was a direct quote, "I'm going to kill everybody.
I don't care if I go to prison.
I don't care if I go to prison."
Yeah.
Right. So this guy did something about it, and there was a ton of video contemporaneous of the fact. about what happened, exactly what happened. Well, the guy who was saying he was going to kill everybody and was assaulting people and whatnot, that Daniel Penny ultimately subdued, died as a result of his actions. And
His own actions, because when the police arrived on the
Right,
scene,
that's right.
the unhinged dude was still alive.
Right, and there's all of this context about what the unhinged guy had consumed ahead of his assault on these people on the subway, and so a lot of the blame went to Daniel Penny when he maybe wasn't totally responsible.
And if we lived in a normal world, Daniel Penny would have been a hero from day one. But of course not. In the media, how they characterized it at the time is like famous subway Michael Jackson impersonator murdered by.
we covered it at the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
By veteran.
Yeah, that's basically how they covered it. It was a famous Michael Jackson impersonator. Never mind the fact that he had all kinds of mental health issues, and that he was actually threatening life or death of people on the subway. This guy did something about it, and you're right. In that any other case, at any other point in American history, we were looking at somebody who would have been given the keys to the city.
Yep.
And somebody who would have been celebrated as a hero. And this particular law enforcement agency within Manhattan decided, oh no, we're going to press murder charges against this guy, which we covered it at the time. And my big fear about this, and I still continue to have this fear just because of what Michael Penny had to go through. Now, he was ultimately acquitted yesterday on all of these things, which is like a bless to humanity. But my concern was, look, all of us, we try to limit public interaction at this point because of these kind of situations. We didn't used to. But you grew up with this sense of obligation that if someone was being hurt, you would do something about it. And all of us, it's instinctual in a lot of ways. In our generation, I think it's instinctual that you would do something about it. You probably wouldn't think about it until after it was all over, and you would find yourself in the situation that Daniel Penny had. Well, my concern was for future generations that you wouldn't. You're like, oh, it's much more concerning for me.
That's the thing, and you see this across the country is when you had these Soros prosecutors show up on the scene, and their intent was in a way basically to demoralize the public of if you see something, say nothing, do nothing, remain in fear. And if you've had the misfortune to ride the New York City subway, you get on there, there's probably going to be someone nutty running amok. It's full of homeless people who are jumping the turnstiles. Anything could happen. There's been numerous people killed, pushed onto the subway tracks. It's become this daily way of life for people that, oh, well, I could get attacked by an unhinged homeless person because prosecutors in New York City have made it legal to be insane and a danger to public and illegal to step in and try to do the right thing.
But speaking of the Soros prosecutors, if you haven't seen the prosecutor who was trying to bring down this hero, Daniel Penny, do yourself a favor and Google Daphne Urin. She is the prosecutor in New York, and there's a picture of her.
Do we have that?
There's a picture of her wearing this modern art T-shirt with the lib glasses, talking about how she is going to carry out this leftist view of the world in all of these interviews that she does.
Yeah, there was a video that went around where there was a case of, I believe he was an 86-year-old man who was robbed at the ATM, and he was thrown to the ground and died. And in this video, she's saying, I feel really bad for the robber.
I mean,
because, he grew up under rough circumstances and was put in this situation. He kills him. When the prosecutor is saying, I sympathize with the criminal, instead of I sympathize with this 80-year-old man who was murdered, there's a problem.
Right. These Soros prosecutors are a big problem because they pick winners and losers as they see the world, not as regular people who understand the system of justice as it should be.
That's right.
They believe in a system of injustice.
That's right.
And they're
there to correct it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was worried about it for a little while because last week there was a deadlock on the jury.
Yeah.
And then they came back and ultimately found him not guilty of the manslaughter charge. But then the judge, I think it's called an Allen charge, where you go to the jury and be like, all right, you have to like deliver a verdict on this other charge. And so they went back and deliberated longer. Thankfully, though, acquitted on that as well.
But the reason why they did that is because this lunatic leftist prosecutor was like, please dismiss this initial charge in hopes that she could get him on this other charge.
Yeah.
And of course, the jury was like, not guilty.
Yeah. Also weird that manslaughter is a higher charge than criminally negligent homicide. You would think, homicide. It's homicide in the word.
Yeah. It's just it's all just such a bizarre circumstance, but it is indicative of this larger bizarre point in time that we were in from 2020 to 2023.
Yeah, it's just political prosecution.
Where it's political prosecution. And this is why, if you revisit back to our conversation from last week about the Hunter Biden thing, why I was so upset about being a president of the United States and giving voice to political prosecutions as being a problem because it affected his own son. And then not talking about the larger problem that is infecting Americans around this country and has been now for 3 or 4 long years.
I mean, specifically in the same jurisdiction as this,
Yes.
in New York.
Yeah.
Like that misdemeanor against Trump org becomes, however many felonies against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Only in New York would they do something like that. And that was just what they did to Daniel Penny.
But they spent months trashing this guy through their allies in the left-wing media.
Yeah.
And then in the courtroom, I don't know if you guys saw this, in the courtroom, as soon as the verdict of not guilty came down, there were leftists who basically threatened to kill Daniel Penny.
Yep.
When he walked out of the courtroom, there was a guy waiting, this leftist lunatic who was like, oh, it's a small world.
He was like a BLM leader.
Implying that they're going to do something to the guy. So if you're Daniel Penny, you've now been found not guilty, and yet what do? Where do you live? You're a hero who protected all these people on the subway. And all these people, people on the subway who were victims, white, black, Hispanic, whatever, they needed somebody to help them, and that's what he did. And yet these leftists are like, no, there's no quarter for you. We are going to come and find you. Yeah. So what do you do if you're him?
My advice to Daniel Penny, same thing I did. You have to leave New York. It's not a sane town anymore. It's a town. This has shown how hostile they are to Americans who want to go about their daily lives, who want to be normal people. You can't do that in New York City. You got to leave. My recommendation to him, I picked North Carolina. Daniel picked Florida. They've got a sane governor and a sane justice system in the state of Florida. But that's what's happened is that these cities, especially with the rule of these Soros prosecutors and these morons that are elected to public office there, it's untenable.
If you live in a city where someone runs in an elected judicial office, meaning they're upholding the law, whether they're a judge or a sheriff or whatever, at putting political enemies in prison, get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
Because this is what Biden had the opportunity to speak to, and he deliberately chose not to.
Yeah, this was a great point that you made, like a week and a half ahead of time for all of this stuff, and it was very prescient for what we're dealing with today.
Well, this is a thing, crazy people running amok on metro or the subway that like I've dealt with.
Yeah, everybody.
I'm sure everybody has. I remember a few months ago riding the metro, and one of these crazy people starting to like shout at other people who did nothing to them in the train car. And like, what you do in a situation like that, at least I do, is like you position yourself where you've got eyes on that person, but you don't look at them.
Right.
Because again, they're a lunatic.
A little periphery.
Yeah, but you want to make sure like your back is to the wall and you're aware of what this person's doing. You don't want to be surprised. And I remember looking around that train car and everybody petrified. But in the back of my head is like, one of these libs on this, if it came to doing something, one of these libs on here is going to be all in favor of me being put on trial
Yep.
for assaulting this crazy
Which
person.
is like through no fault of your own.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many people just like hurry off the car on the next stop and don't do anything because they're scared of the jurisdiction in which they live.
Look, it's an important moment, and we lead the show with it. It's not top federal political news, but we lead it with because it's an important moment. One, he's acquitted, thank God. Two, you have to think about why he was ever prosecuted in the first place and know what the danger is in what you are facing when you're dealing with these hyper-political prosecution units across this country that were funded by George Soros and everything else. So anyway, I'm glad, thank goodness, Daniel Penny's a free man. He's a Marine, decorated Marine, did his work on behalf of all of us and the people in that subway, and thank goodness he's going home. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the New York assassination
Yeah.
of the United Healthcare CEO.
Big Law and Order Day on the Ruthless
Big
Friday
Law and
program.
Order. There's news on that front.
Yeah.
There's news on that front. We're going to get into all of that right after this.
The words government efficiency used to be an oxymoron, but with President Trump back, it could actually become a reality. And here's where the Department of Government Efficiency should start, the IRS. Under Biden, Democrats spent billions of taxpayer dollars on new agents to audit taxpayers. And then they went ahead and spent millions more on a longtime Elizabeth Warren pipe dream called Direct File, allowing the IRS to capture even more of your personal information and collect even more of your hard-earned tax dollars without you knowing it. It's the government deciding what you owe before you have the chance to. The Democrats did all of this unilaterally without any input from Congress. But President Trump is back and looking to find ways to save Americans money. The obvious answer is to get rid of this multi-million-dollar direct file program that no one asked for. So if Elon and Vivek want the best place to start cutting costs, look no further than the IRS and the savings that will come from repealing direct file. Learn more at protectingtaxpayers.org.
All right, so turns out, much to Spaghetti's dismay, that they've named a suspect. And, well, let's just say he's not Irish.
No.
Luigi Mangione?
Oh, what a
Does
surprise.
that feel right? Is that like a... Because we could go with like a Mangione.
Mangione.
Are we going
Luigi.
Mangione spaghetti? Yeah, okay. Well, so this is the cat that they've brought in to
Yeah.
custody. You've probably all seen the video by now of a cloaked assassin outside of a hotel in New York City who, like, brazenly in a morning came in and just shot the CEO of a Fortune 50 company. That just doesn't happen in America. I
Right.
mean, it's just something that's just completely insane.
Right.
And it looked like a hit. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos that suggested that this is not a professional hitman, based on the way that he handled it.
But he's living up to the Italian stereotype.
But, he did what he did. And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you find him in a McDonald's where, listen to the New York Post. A person of interest was nabbed Monday in the fatal shooting of United Health CEO Brian Thompson, busted possibly trying to use a fake ID at McDonald's. I got a lot of questions about that.
Yep, same.
A fake, what is he being ID'd for at McDonald's?
I have to imagine a concerned citizen probably recognized his face and must have called the cops, and then the cops asked him for ID. I can only think that's the reason why.
Gotta
you know?
be, right?
Gotta be.
Well, the best of us are going to McDonald's.
Or
I
may-
think that proves that it's
Was he
it's a
trying to
restaurant
order a
attracts-
Chianti or something? They're like, we need to see some ID, amigo. Like,
I mean, like nobody's greater hurt than the Olive Garden at this thing than he was at McDonald's during.
Yeah, bad for the brand.
He goes to McDonald's. The man who sources said is being eyed for the cold-blooded, targeted execution in front of a Manhattan hotel last week, allegedly had a manifesto on him when he was taken into custody by cops in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He also had a gun, a silencer, 4 fake IDs, and other items consistent with what authorities said they were looking for in the case.
they were looking for a tall Italian and they caught Luigi. Who would have guessed? And what's the manifesto? Just a spaghetti cookbook? What's this guy got on him? You got Luigi Lasagna caught in the McDonald's. You knew it was an Italian. Like, let's be serious. We all knew it was an Italian. It's the middle of New York. The guy pulls out a suppressed gun, shoots somebody. This is the same thing. It was like St. Valentine's Massacre, right? Was it Sparks Steakhouse? This is just what Italians do in that town.
It is very funny and hot-blooded Italian, perfect hot-blooded Italian lore that he only got caught because he took down his mask to flirt with a girl.
Oh, so I will stress allegedly in all this case because charges have not yet been brought on Luigi. But this is unbelievable in so many different ways. I mean, look, people have different. The story that we were talking about this a little earlier before we came on show. So this guy that they're identifying as the suspect who had all this stuff on him was the valedictorian of an elite school, $40,000 a year, and he went to. He allegedly is like a master's or obtained a master's from Penn. The story of what brings a human from the point where he was at to doing what allegedly happened, it didn't allegedly happen, it was allegedly he was involved in it, outside of a New York hotel room, is got to be the wildest thing you've ever heard.
That's it. You can't fight genetics. Like, he tried to have a normal life. That should be his defense. Not guilty by reason of Italian. Like, he had a normal day and then the Italian just snapped in him.
You're gonna spaghetti's coming
Italian.
But like,
spaghetti's coming over the dice.
Never go full Italian.
He's coming over the dice.
He went to a very expensive school in the Baltimore area, and it's not surprising. I don't think. Like, I think like affluent, rudderless, intelligent people have been, terrorists since the dawn of man. I mean, like, think about like Osama bin Laden, like the billionaire scion of a construction fortune. Ayman al-Zawahiri was a doctor. Saeed Qutb was a professor.
But there's always a fascinating story as to what led them to this point.
Oh, of course.
And that is the most interesting part to me, is that you've got a guy who seemingly had a lot going on for him, who got to a level of bizarre anti-corporate, like, what is it, Antifa, basically, anti-fascist point of view, where he felt like he was on him to assassinate a CEO
of an insurance company. Like, what happened to this guy? He get like an injury on Rainbow Road. He got hit with a red shell.
Yeah.
Luigi's gone. He's snapped.
He got hit by a red shell.
Claim denied. And he's like, that's it.
But I mean, that's how these Marxists always are, dude, is like, if they see somebody who's wealthy or has done well in their life, the first thing they think is, what labor did you exploit from the masses? And that makes you an evil person in their eyes. And so then anything is justified against those sorts of people.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. And the other thing that struck me is the way that the left has reacted to this.
Yeah.
You've seen so many tweets from the left where they're like, yes, I need to find the jacket that he wore, and I'm going to buy that jacket, and I'm going to wear it around New York. And the difference between how the left reacted to Daniel Penny, who was sticking up for other people who were on their way to work on the subway, and the way that the left has reacted to this lunatic who shot a guy in cold blood is stark. And I think it tells you exactly who they are, and it tells you why nobody in America wants to be like them.
Well, no better personified than somebody who is an annual powerhouse in Hack Madness, Taylor Lorenz.
Yes.
Now, we were extremely concerned when she was fired from the Washington Post, because, this is somebody who is a Final Four participant each and every March in Hack Madness here. And, like, is she going to find a home?
Yeah, it'd be like Duke dissolving its basketball team.
Yeah, right. It's like, you can't, no, we can't have it. Like, I would expect to see them compete.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, Vox hired her. I didn't know Vox was still in business, by the way. But Vox, VOX, hired her. And then they fired her. And the reason they fired her was following an article in which she said she wants more executives to die after the assassination of the United Health CEO.
You know, this is exactly what Duncan just said. Because Taylor Lorenz went to like a $70,000 a year Swiss boarding school.
Yeah.
Right? Little trust fund kid. And she's out here being like, yes, the Marxist revolution must come. We must assassinate more CEOs.
Like wealthy, rudderless kids who feel like the world owes them something are addicted to these luxury belief politics that are extremely radical. They just are.
It's becoming more radical. It used to just be that the hell with everybody. You know, everybody's wrong, and they would platform themselves to speak nonsense. But now we're talking about advocating for the murder of people, which is like that. That's a different thing.
You'd really think
Can we
there'd be
put
a
up
line that
graphic
wouldn't
four?
cross.
Can we put a graphic 4? Look at the graphic 4. Why we, quote unquote, want insurance executives dead. No, that does not mean people should murder them. But if you've watched a loved one suffer and die from insurance denial, it's normal to wish the people responsible would suffer the same fate. So she goes on to like basically provide some
It's a defense. It's
level of defense.
It's a defense of murder is what it is.
Of what's going on here.
Because to them, it's like, wink, wink, it's justified.
Here's the thing, just to build off of what you've said a number of times, Michael, and I think it's a very astute observation about these trust fund kids. They have all the money in the world. They have no wants except for one thing, fame. They want to be famous. Taylor Lorenz wants to be famous. Luigi, whatever his face is, wants to be famous. And infamy is a form of fame to them.
Yeah.
It's an acceptable form of fame because they just want people to know their name. They don't want to just be a rich kid who somebody else earned the money and gave them to them.
So I think it's kind of that, but I think it's like a life where you have everything is a life devoid of meaning. And so they, like, people like that are in search of some meaning. And some of that meaning means rejecting what they are themselves.
Yeah.
Which is...
well, that's the only way you get attention.
Right.
You're never going to, I mean, look, it goes into partisan politics. Like I remember McConnell telling everybody when we first got started in a Republican conference at the height of Democratic power in 07 or 08, you're never going to garner more headlines or be more popular the moment that you speak out against your Republican colleagues. And that goes in a very crazy way to what we're talking about now. If you're a rich, like fully subsidized individual, you'll never get more attention than you are of rejecting the culture by which you were brought up in.
And that's not like, imagine being Taylor Lorenz's father, you know, like you end up with this trust fund monster. Like, what would be worse? Like, if you're in that situation, for your daughter to be Marxist journo or OnlyFans? Like, what is the worst possible outcome?
Dude.
Journo or OnlyFans?
Do you have an answer?
Dude, that is like a Sophie's choice.
No, it's a really Sophie's
It's
choice.
like, oh my God.
Would you rather have the poll? Or would you rather have, like, Marxist journo?
Oh my God.
I mean, no, honestly, this is the question of the day. This is the question of the day. We had a very different question of the day planned for you, but this is our question of the day. Would you rather have a daughter in your family be on the poll or a Marxist journo? I don't have an answer.
I mean, at least the stripper's earning a living. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, and
I don't have a daughter, so this is totally hypothetical for me.
providing goods and services.
Just saying.
Providing goods and services. I don't know. I mean, look at the next graphic. This is the cat. So Taylor Lorenz followed this cat on 4A, if you wouldn't mind, Spaghetti. So this is
Luigi.
yeah, this is Luigi. And again, the alleged suspect here, which he's got a picture of himself in the upper right, where he's like all jacked out and he's
Hiking, shirtless.
Wait, this guy lives in Hawaii? Is that accurate that says on here?
I just don't feel like any of it. Listen, this is all very late breaking. We're going to find out a lot more, but this is allegedly...
Like, how unhinged was this Hawaiian Italian? Did he put pineapple on his pizza? Like, what's the story on
I
this
don't know,
guy?
but that could be a terrorist act in and of itself.
Yeah.
That could be a terrorist act in and of itself. Anyway, she followed this cat, which is, I think, the surest sign that it might be an authentic deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, take it for what it's worth. Here at the Ruthless Variety Program, we endeavor to give you the very best information we can, but we'll also tell you when we're just not sure. And this is one of those circumstances. So just remember, the poll or a Marxist journo.
Yeah.
And you make the call. Tell us in your tell us in your responses how you feel about all of that. You got to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe
If you wish to opine.
That's right.
And if you got to hear, if you want your friends to hear this, you got to do the same thing. We got a lot more about the depraved reactions that we're seeing from liberals around this assassination, plus your comments from last week. We're gonna get to all of it right after this.
All right, so I just got to point out that my friends at Americans for Prosperity made a huge difference this year. AFP volunteers made millions of voter contacts, which is absolutely mind-blowing. They are the largest, most effective ground game operation in the country to defend and advance the conservative movement. But now that the election is behind us, the hard work of turning electoral victory into policy wins begins. And the grassroots army with Americans for Prosperity will again be in the thick of it. We have an incredible opportunity next year to get the country back on track, but it means we're all going to have to roll up our sleeves and get to work. If you're ready to join a winning team making a difference across the country, check out my friends at AFP, and you can learn more at americansforprosperity.org.
All right, so last Thursday, we asked you a pertinent question based on the comments of Donald Trump about Canada. Remember, Justin Trudeau came down to have an audience with the incoming president of the United States and was making all kinds of cases about the new alliance between Canada and the United States under Donald Trump, where he suggested like either they can fix the trade imbalance or they become our 51st state. Mm-hmm. And so our question was, if we have it as a 51st state, what would you name this thing? What would you name this thing? And so all of our comments are just fantastic. We just love you guys for just weighing in on all of it. But we always start with a voice, and let's do that now.
Okay, first one comes from Dreamchild. And Dreamchild writes, I think we could rename Canada something like Trumplandia. More importantly, I think the land formerly known as Canada would be better as a U.S. territory.
Oh.
I can't support giving voting rights and full representation to the lunatics who continued to elect Trudeau and put pineapple on pizza.
That's a theme.
Listen, Dreamchild gets exactly where I was coming at this. Where I was like,
Don't let him vote.
I feel like adding one where we get like, that's a 2 Democratic senator and, you know, at least a few representatives. I'm not comfortable with that.
I think you'd treat it more like a Puerto Rico situation where they get a non-voting delegate. You know, just like one in the House. And they can like sit on committees and vote in committees, but they don't get a floor vote.
It's like a pretend representative.
Yeah.
Really.
We'll call them like Mayor Mix-Syrup.
And like...
Meanwhile, we'll take all of their natural resources.
Oh, yeah. Strip mine them.
I think... Jesus. Okay. All right. Comment 2. Dunks, what do we got?
This is from Scott Alford. The first idea here is Mar-a-Lago.
That's very funny.
That's pretty good.
Like the Canadian
It's
A.
Mar-a-Lago.
The second one here is the New World, as it's a land full of indigenous people with multiple languages and interesting but ultimately dysfunctional forms of government that will need assistance in coming into the modern world. Lastly, the third here, the North Coast. Self-explanatory.
Can I just ask, Josh, how would you pronounce the North Coast?
North Coast?
There you go.
There's a question mark at the end of that one.
Always. No, I mean, declaratory statements.
Coast?
Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless, I can't think of a greater gift to our new Secretary of the Interior than to give him even more interior to tame.
Hell yeah.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Send
Yeah.
Burgum to conquer him.
Yeah.
The new president.
We would be greeted as liberators if we brought Doug Burgum.
Yeah.
For much of the country,
Yeah.
I'm assured that is the case.
Plants
All
a flag right in central Ottawa.
Yeah.
North Coast? All right, what do we got, Smug?
This one's from Linda Michaelwitz. Linda writes, I love the show and all of you guys too. If Canada were to become the 51st state, I would call it Canuck. I grew up in southeast Minnesota and referred to Canadians as crazy Canuppus. When I was in college and went to the World Dairy Expo, that's got to be a ball.
Wow.
I bet they got
The
a hell
World
of
Dairy Expo.
Maybe they got a better butter cow. Who knows? We often use the term to describe them in front of them, simply because it annoyed the crap out of them. That is the spirit.
There it is.
It is hard to annoy a Canadian, you know?
You really
Yeah.
got to try.
You're like, oh, come on.
Come on.
Everyone knew that you couldn't trust them any farther than you can't trust Canadians. That is true.
What?
They're a strange and dangerous people.
We got a lot of people from Alberta
Yeah.
listening to this
Some of
program.
our finest comedians are
I
Canadian.
didn't force them to be, but
I mean,
are.
there are several that are sharp.
Well, they live in igloos. You know,
They don't live in
they're
igloos.
cold-blooded, like lizards, right?
They live in igloos.
On the coast? Maybe on the coast. That is just, we've just sabotaged an entire country, one of which I've spent a lot of time in over the years. But, you know, these are perfect.
Yeah.
These are perfect.
Another, comment for the day. Who's going to assassinate us first, the Italians or the Canadians?
I mean, the Irish have cause, too.
Yeah.
But we do have at least a little bit of that
Yeah.
here. Like
Yeah, I've
maybe
got
they'll
that.
see it's all in good I don't know. It's all in good fun either way. Anyway, we got to get to a live read. Buddy, it's holiday season.
Yeah.
And if you followed us for a while, you know that there's one way that we bridge the divide of celebratory nature, our nature, here on
Yeah.
the Variety program, and how we do our day jobs. The answer is Z-Biotics.
That's right.
And I will just say, it is a game-changing product. We did this at the convention, where they shipped us a bunch of Z-Biotics. They were going to sponsor our show. They shipped those. We started out skeptical. We're like, I don't know. I mean, you hear a lot about these things that are sort of a pre-drink thing that you have before a big night out, and they never really turn out to much of anything.
Yeah, I mean, as like a seasoned expert in that department, you're a little skeptical.
yeah.
I remember in college you were told, oh, if you drink
Yeah.
a few glasses of
Pedialyte,
water or you
yeah.
drink a Pedialyte, you'll be fine. None of that worked.
Yeah, 2
But
Advil and a
Z-Biotics-
bottle of water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Z-Biotics actually does work.
Yeah, so we,
And we
it's-
did it. We did. The difference is,
Right.
I'm just looking directly into the camera. We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is not something that is hypothetical. This is not something that we've been provided to read. We took this product, we abused our bodies, and then we came back, and I think we were pretty damn sharp.
We were right as rain. And
Yeah.
the way that it works is it's a prebiotic drink. You drink it before you have a little alcohol, and it helps neutralize all the toxic byproduct in your gut. It's not just dehydration that makes you feel bad after a big night. It's that toxic byproduct that's produced by alcohol.
Yeah, and if you're Irish, you're familiar with the genetics that come along with being able to drink heavily at night and then start the morning as if nothing had happened.
Yeah.
And so what Z-Biotics really does is it turns you into an Irishman for a day.
Irishman for a day.
So,
this is the best read
so
of all
we
time.
honestly, it's developed by PhDs. They know what they're doing. And the reason why we believe in it so much is because we've seen it work.
Yep.
And that's why we say there is no tomorrow without Z-Biotics today.
It's really
100%.
amazing stuff. I mean, I truly can't say enough good things about how effective Z-Biotics is. And again, it's like Duncan said, it's not like, you have a Pedialyte or drink a bunch of water and that fixes it. It's because Z-Biotics breaks down all that stuff that makes you feel terrible. It works.
So remember, Christmas is right around the corner. So, and you can deal with that one of two ways. It's either you're just trying to weather the storm there,
Yeah.
or you're in a big celebratory, or a little bit of both, depending on the day. Either way, you go to zbiotics.com/ruthless to learn more and get 15% off your purchase when you use Ruthless at the checkout. Z-Biotics is backed by 100%, and that's not 99, fellas. It's 100%.
100%.
All the way.
100% money back guarantee if you're unsatisfied for any reason. They'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbionics.com/ruthless and use the code RUTHLESS at checkout for 15% off. Can't recommend anything more. Honestly, you need to get involved in that. So listen, we're going to be back with a whole lot more, including the left's crazy stuff and a whole bunch of other things right after this.
I don't have to tell you Americans are ready for what's next. Moving beyond the hardships of inflation and economic anxiety towards building a future, a better future for our families. Ensuring greater access to more affordable energy that powers daily lives, reliable energy that fuels innovation and economic growth, and the abundant energy that keeps our nation safer and more secure. It's all within our grasp. We'll do this together, building a brighter future for us, powered by America's oil and natural gas resources. You can learn more about all of this at api.org.
All right, so we talked a little bit about this, but it's really almost impossible to capture the true insanity of the left unless it comes to one of these horrifying moments like an assassination of a Fortune 50 CEO where they're like cheering it on. And you see like actual publications. Like put up graphic one if you won't mind. This is New York Times. Some on social media see suspect and CEO killing as a folk hero.
I mean, listen to this, buddy. Like, think about the way that the New York Times writes about Republicans. And they would say Republicans pounce on something.
Yeah.
And yet they set up this lunatic as a folk hero in their own voice.
Well, they actually, there's some in, and that was my favorite part. We've sort of graduated a little bit out of that, but there was this whole thing when failing news websites in the late teens, early 2020s were trying to just get enough traffic to survive.
All the headlines were search engine optimization.
Yeah. And they were all they like jam Trump in the name, jam something else, and they were basically just trying to hit the algorithm to the point where they were actually generating traffic. And so there was a ton of headlines that were like, social media says, like we would never say, our reporters would never say, but we are saying. It's one thing when you're like those trash publications. This is the New York Times.
Aren't these the same people that said al-Baghdadi was an austere scholar?
That was the Washington Post.
That's Washington Post?
Yeah, Washington Post.
But they might as well.
Yeah.
Like mostly peaceful, austere folk hero commits murders that we agree with. It's unbelievable. Like this is the New York Times, supposed to be the paper of record, and I see it as them trying to launder their own feelings on it. Like Ashbrook said, like if this is, they'll go with Republicans pounce, right? But here they're trying to launder how they agree with this lunatic by being like, oh well, some folks on social media see him as a folk hero.
Right. It shows you how they completely dismiss more than half of this country in the effort to placate a very small sliver of hardened leftists, because that's who they talk to, because that's who they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. Listen to Vox. This is the next one out of the gates. If you wouldn't mind putting that graphic up, please. The deep roots of Americans' hatred of their healthcare system. This one goes deeper, right? Because Vox is a sort of pseudo-intellectual left that likes to make what they think is intellectual arguments behind leftist positions of, anti-market-based healthcare systems. There's somebody who's advocated for years about government takeover, single payer, that kind of thing. So this is a perfect fit for them to march in and be like, I don't know, some guy was assassinated outside of a hotel in Manhattan, but let me tell you what it's really about, our point of view.
Right. Yeah. Nobody was asking for a white paper supporting the Assassin's Manifesto, but that's what Vox has provided.
And it's funny because they never point out in this article Obamacare. Obamacare causes costs to skyrocket for all Americans, but they're like, oh, well, the deep roots of Americans' hatred is the rich people are bad.
I mean,
they don't say, oh, well, Obama screwed up.
But you're getting a little flavor for what it's going to be like next year and beyond under a Donald Trump administration, because as much as the country has told all of us that the Republican Party and Donald Trump in particular is a middle class advocate, that he gets it doesn't. It's not a race thing. It's not a lot in life. It's a middle class thing.
Absolutely.
You know, and everyone understands that at this point. They don't have anywhere to hide now. Their place under traditional Republican rule for 20 years is, well, the rich people are just holding us down, except for the fact that the voters told them that that is absolutely not true. So now they're going to hide under a whole bunch of like extremism and try to manifest the deep roots of American hatred is of their healthcare system.
Yeah, it's just 500 words when they could have just said, "We think the killing is justified."
That's that's right.
I mean, like, and if Donald Trump hadn't turned his head,
yeah,
do you know how many of these articles there would have been?
Oh my God!
About how
Had it coming.
He brought it on himself.
Had it coming.
Yeah.
God.
No, I mean
You're
there would.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
There would. And they even kind of tried a little bit in that period of time. They even kind of tried that, which is unbelievable. But this is the most unbelievable one, Graphic 3.
It's so unhinged.
It's from Blue Sky. And
Of course.
all outright calling for more violence. And they show a picture of Elon with a gunman's hand. And this is Libs of Blue Sky KY. Guys, like, the reason that Blue Sky, the fundamental reason behind Blue Sky was that there was violent rhetoric, things that we couldn't justify, and like the First Amendment doesn't extend to all this violence and personal animosity that Elon Musk had allowed to come forward. And then like all of a sudden that operation starts existing for 10 minutes and it's full of pedophiles and then attempted assassinations of, like, one of the most successful people in the history of the country.
So a real mask off moment for the left, right?
Real
now.
mask off moment.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I can't. Whoever this is, Libs of Blue Sky.
No. So Libs of Blue Sky was pointing it out.
Tagging, yeah.
The person who did it, their name is smilingnodding.bluesky.social.
Oh, so Libs of Blue Sky is our people.
Yeah. They're calling this person out.
They're calling them out. So, but whoever this is that ultimately posted this, I hope they get a visit.
Yeah, they really need to.
That's the thing. I really hope that the FBI is looking at this. You know what I mean? Like, if federal authorities are looking at anything, they need to have an eye on terrorists who are trying to harm regular people who are simply playing by the rules.
And the FBI is like, yeah, we are going after terrorists. We're going to all the school board meetings and writing down the names of all the moms who show up.
Which is why we need Kash Patel to run the place.
That's right.
Yeah, well, we're going to get it soon. A couple other things that happened over the weekend that you ought to be aware of. Get a load of this. Let's put up graphic number 5, please, if you don't mind, Spaghettis. Graphic 5 is from the Department of Health and Human Services that is celebrating Pansexual Pride Day. Happy Pansexual and Pan-Romantic Pride Day to people. That's your government Department of Health and Human Services.
People are like, why does healthcare in the country suck? Well, this is what the Health and Human Services Department's up to.
They employ someone over there who thought this was a priority.
I don't
even know what the fuck that is.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like every day is a day of wonders in which I learn of a new thing in the alphabet mafia. You know? I mean, pan-romantic? What the hell is that? And how is it different than pansexual?
Is that they don't have a letter in the LGBT? It's now QIA plus. Maybe like a P is in there.
We got to throw a P in now.
I think pansexual is supposed to be people who are just attracted to everybody, sort of thing.
Isn't that like bisexual?
You would think. I think they're all just. Like,
I'm scared of what else falls under that category.
I think it's just a cry for attention. It's like, I didn't get enough attention, so I got to be something special.
Imagine just like sitting around the conference room and you're like, okay, what are the
the social media priorities for the week. You got this. And it's Pansexual Day.
And don't forget pan-romantic, because people will be very upset.
Yeah, no,
if
you can't
skip it.
forget the pan-romantic.
Yeah.
And they would be upset. Like, that's the thing is,
It's a regular Romeo and Juliet.
it's one thing for people to like, this is a mental health problem to begin with, right? But then to have the Department of Health and Human Services, who's supposed to help tackle that problem, instead encourage it, I can't wait until we get RFK calling the shots there. It can't happen soon enough. Like, let's worry about actually trying to make the country healthy again instead of catering to mental health illness, which is what this is.
It can't come soon enough.
And thank God it got ratio to the sun.
It got ratio to the sun.
But it also, like the good old fashioned gay people in this country voted for Trump.
Yeah,
Because they're like, wait a minute, I want health care too.
Right.
We don't need to have a bunch of tweets about stuff it's irrelevant.
it's just wild, And like, we're the last people on the planet to be like, oh, you don't belong. But what the hell is pan-romantic? Like, stop with that.
Right.
Stop with that.
Right.
You got men, you got women, you got a bunch of people in categories underneath it, like where they don't know where they sexually identify. I certainly don't need the Health of Human Services being the one that's arbitrating how you identify personally.
Right.
And like, as soon as it starts getting into like my kids' sports
Right.
and bathrooms and stuff
Right.
like that's why we're in this situation, and they don't get it.
Right.
They still don't get it.
Maybe try to bring insurance premiums down.
Yeah,
That's an option.
it could.
Maybe try to make food a little healthier. That's an option.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
sadly, you see what Luigi thinks about how you do that. You know what I mean?
You get the red shell.
Like, it's crazy. You get red shelled. Red shell. Jesus. That's unbelievable. Okay. A couple other things. So Trump, did you guys know that Trump's apparently selling colognes?
Yes.
I learned that over the weekend, man, in most spectacular fashion.
All right, so he's apparently selling colognes. Can we put up graphic 6? Because this is absolutely hysterical.
I just love this so much.
This is from the reopening of that Cathedral of Notre Dame, of just like Joe Biden was giving Trump a look like, she's celebrating Romantic Day, looking at Trump that way.
So for our audio only, put that graphic back up. For our audio only listeners, what we're talking about is a commercial like for his fragrances that is a picture of Donald Trump with Jill Biden kind of looking longingly at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, her president. She voted for him.
With the caption, a fragrance your enemies can't resist.
It's just so funny.
I will say that.
It's so funny.
Look, if you can get me beyond the point where I'm like endorsing presidential candidates having a fragrance line, which I'm not going to do, that's one of the funniest trolls I've seen in a long time.
That was excellent.
I mean, very, very funny.
And it was noticeable. If you saw the images coming from that reopening, she was just like looking him up and down. Like, damn, like, where is Sleepy Joe?
Yeah.
Sleepy Joe, get on the case, bro.
And not for nothing, but, Sleepy Joe was nowhere to be found over the weekend at this gigantic worldwide spectacle of the reopening in Notre Dame. And Trump is there. He's putting the handshake on Macron, and he is like showing America.
You notice how he went for the upper?
He did.
He always has to have the upper.
Show dominance.
Demonstrate that America is full alpha once again. So he walks in and he is doing his part. He's not complaining about Biden. There was no tweet or complaint
no
that
discussion.
Biden has lost his mind, so therefore I'm standing in for him ahead of when my payroll starts.
Yeah.
Like, he shows up because it's America demonstrating that they're part of the world and that they're in charge. We are in charge again, thanks to what voters did in November. And, like, I think that moment when he walked in Notre Dame was one of the greatest moments in the last 10 years in American dominance.
Well, the left isn't taking any of this well.
Of course not.
Everything that we've covered and more. One of the favorite targets that we've had here is Rosie O'Donnell. Remember we put a picture up of her a couple of weeks ago where I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Election day was not kind.
What happened to this lady? Well, we weren't the only ones to observe that, evidently. She feels like the need to sort of justify her own personal look. So can we check out clip 3, please?
Well, hey, everybody, it's Friday all day, as my Nana would say.
Oh, yeah.
And look
Gotta
what I
quote
have on
the
my lip.
Nana.
Everybody's been saying, you have herpes all this time, and I never had a cold sore in my life, and now I have a cold sore. And it makes me think that perhaps this weird pimple that had a tiny little head was a cold sore, too. And so I talked to my doctor today, and I did a video telehealth, and they said that it's not a cold sore, it's some reaction to the sun. Now, I did sit in the sun yesterday, but I had sunscreen on. So I don't know. I will let you know tomorrow if I do, in fact, have herpes.
Keep us
as some
updated.
of the taunting from the MAGA people in the last couple of weeks. Hasn't it been fun, ladies and gentlemen, to be standing in direct opposition to everything he is and represents?
Yeah, pregnant pause. Unnecessary.
And
Look
always
at
will be.
My advice to everybody, keep taunting this vampire. That, like, the sun is making her disfigured. Like, what the hell is she talking about? She's like, Donald Trump and his supporters have given me herpes. It wasn't Donald Trump and his supporters who gave you herpes. God knows what you have. This vampire's like, if you expose me to the sun, I start dying.
I feel like Scrooge, and I was just visited by the ghost of Christmas future.
Whatever that situation was, I don't want any part of that. Because it's like a real breakdown.
Yeah.
She's like, I look terrible. I know I look terrible. You know I look terrible.
Like,
You've been
folks, you may
talking a
have
lot
noticed
about it.
I look like the Crypt Keeper.
So let me provide an explanation. Which is like the worst. I can't even imagine. Like in Hollywood, that's got to be the worst. Like, hey, I know you guys have noticed I look like shit.
It's like, you can't feed the trolls. Just a piece of advice for you, Rosie. Like, you aren't going to own the MAGAs or whatever by doing a 3-minute explainer video about how you don't have herpes. Okay? They are, if the second you hit record, we already won.
It's free consulting.
Jeez. Meanwhile, it gets worse and worse. Like, I don't know. I mean, you think you try to clean it. I don't know. It's not good.
Not good.
Not good.
I hope she keeps at it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Recording
have,
videos talking about your herpes problem, Rosie.
Maybe we'll have 4 years of this.
Yeah.
If we're lucky. Maybe 8 years.
So just remember, our question of the day is would you rather have your daughter on the pole or a Marxist journalist? That's what we've got here on the Ruthless Variety program. You got to like and subscribe in order to be entertained here on the Variety program and for your friends to be able to see it. So like, subscribe, and then tell us one of the two, because I don't have an answer.
Tough question.
I
question.
frankly don't have an answer.
Yeah. It's a father's nightmare.
I'd need a lot of Z-biotics with that choice.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out our merch while you're there. We've got amazing things that we can deliver right before Christmas, so you get involved in that. I got a bunch of feedback from friends and listeners over the last couple of weeks that started getting some stuff in. And
Nice.
napkins are a huge hit.
Yeah.
But
Store.ruthlesspodcast.com, right? That's the
that's
Yeah.
the subdomain?
that's where you
I
get 'em.
think we're actually out of the napkins now. I
Are
don't
we?
think we can actually promise delivery before Christmas.
We can't do that.
And we respect our listeners and viewers, and
Yeah.
we don't want to sell you something we can't get you there before Christmas, but I'm sure they'll be back after the
Integrity
holiday season.
first here on the Ruthless Variety program.
We
can
tried.
sell it to you, but we can't get it there in time, so don't buy it.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other stuff.
Oh, there's tons of great stuff.
Plenty of other stuff
Yeah.
that we can get to you.
The old man is sewing like one of Santa's elves.
Well, he's just been busy as a little bee.
Got carpal tunnel.
Busy a bit. Like, one of those elves in the first Rudolph, just working your little hands, just getting those things.
I got to keep them lathered up, because I'm getting paper cuts. I've got
Oh,
dry
yeah.
skin.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, no, I have.
I'm going to fire workers' comp after this.
Just get some oil.
Yeah.
Denied. We got some ointment in the back. We use it for butt paste on the kids.
Listen, with all that, fellas, it's so good to go into the holiday season with you fellas. It's been so much fun. Great episode. I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, like Holmes said, like and subscribe. And like Ashbrook said, like and subscribe if you wish to opine. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.